never tells me when my ties are crooked. That's wrong.
I always do. That's because your ties are never crooked.
They're never crooked. Hide the cord. Would hold the.
I got it.
When do you do?
The end of October.
On Facebook.
October 27th.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Facebook also. I know you guys.
This is on the
What did you say, February?
October 27th.
Oh my gosh, we're almost there.
Almost there.
Okay, so we're going to get started. Hello to all our supporters out on Facebook. I guess this is kind of an update on an article that was written in the Detroit News relative to Michigan State Police pulling out of the 9th Precinct. So I'll tell you, as I indicated in the article, I support the decision. It's no secret that there's been some tension in the neighborhood, and I did have a conversation today with the colonel and the captain for the Detroit Post. Both said that certainly they regretted doing it, but they knew it was the right thing to do given the heightened tensions in the community. But that doesn't affect the other parts that MSP contributes to. For example, they still provide Detroit air support. Their helicopter and our helicopter tend to work together doing air support missions, and certainly they still work our major craze squad in homicide. So none of that's changed, just simply for the reasons I stated.
What's your opinion on them pulling, I don't want to say pulling out, but them suspending their patrols in the precinct for now?
I think it's the right decision. I think if the tables were turned, and certainly given the tension, sometimes that presence could, incite something. Again, no one says it's a permanent solution. However, for right now, we think it's okay. I did have a conversation some time ago, immediately following the tragedy involving the young man who was killed on the ATV. And we had a number of protests, as you know. We talked about the fact that their presence could certainly aggravate or incite the incident. So I didn't think that was the wrong decision.
Chief Lieutenant Shaw said today that the MSP has a good relationship with people in the 9th, and that they wouldn't think that there would be any conflict or any sort of clash with police. You agree with if they stayed?
Well, for Lieutenant Shaw to make that statement, in one hand, I had a direct conversation with the colonel who runs the MSP, and she's of the opinion that at this time, not having MSP in the neighborhood works well, given that there's some tension. So you'd have to ask Lieutenant Shaw about his statement, because I'm confused.
Talk about the DPD's relationship with the community. Has it changed? Have you seen it? Anyone trying to agitate officers or harm officers in light of what happened involving the...
I have not heard of anything specific. And I will tell you, I did also talk to the commanding officer of the 9th Precinct, Commander Decker, who, since he's been assigned back to the 9th Precinct and MSP has been involved, he certainly welcomed the support. They certainly have been a good partner. They've made a number of arrests for individuals who were felons carrying guns. He felt that played a role in helping reduce violence in that area. So he supports it. The relationships between MSP and DPD have been positive in that area. They work well together. So this was just a decision made that does make sense for now.
Can you talk about the relationship building? What are DPD's plans to maintain the positive relationships with the community after the withdrawal?
Well, nothing's changed because MSP has made, again, the right decision for now to withdraw. That has no impact on DPD's relationship. In fact, we are about the business of building bridges. We have MPOs that are still doing the work that they do each and every day. This is just one part of the city. We have 12 precincts that we manage, and we work with the community in every one of them. So this will have no effect on that at all.
When you talked to the colonel, did you talk about those tensions, and how would you characterize the relationship between your two departments right now?
I think it's favorable. In fact, in response to the article that came out in the Detroit News, both Colonel Etchu as well as Captain Yes reached out to talk about the decision. We're professionals. They're our brothers and sisters in law enforcement. We have worked well together during my 4 years here, so nothing's changed.
What do you do in terms of, I mean, obviously, because we're talking about 10 troopers that were patrolling number 9, do you bring extra officers in, or how do you make up for that difference?
Well, the troopers were deployed 5 days a week. More than likely worked during the hours that were busiest. They work very closely with the 9th Precinct Special Operations, so those hours are roughly 7 to 3. We're not going to miss a beat. The DPD will continue to function. We've done a phenomenal job at continuing to drive crime down. That was an added bonus, but certainly since their departure, and I didn't know it was, I don't know what date they pulled out, our crime in the 9th Precinct is still down. Homicides are down in the 9th Precinct. Our shootings are up by 10 non-fatal shootings compared to last year. But overall, the crime is still trending in the right direction.
Have you noticed anything related to ATVs, more people riding ATVs in response to this, or are your officers enforcing any ATV laws?
I've not heard an increased presence of ATVs. As I've said, probably right after this incident, I think it's wise that we find a way to provide a place for these young people to ride their off-road vehicles. That's something that I certainly want to continue to work on as a solution. But in terms of increased presence, I have no reports of that, unless you've gotten it from some officers in the field.
Is there a fine line to walk? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
What can you tell us about where you're at in your independent investigation into this?
I'm very pleased where we are. In fact, we're in a wrap-up phase now. We've, from the beginning, have been working very closely with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. That's moving along very well. There are 2 items that require an analysis, evidence, that we haven't gotten information back on. But in terms of our interviews and the basic investigation, for the most part, that work is complete.
Can you go into detail about the 2 items?
I don't want to go into that because it is an active investigation, but we are waiting for some items to be analyzed. And again, but we've been in constant communication with the prosecutor's office. I have had conversations with Wayne County Prosecutor Worthy, so I'm satisfied at our pace and where we are in this investigation.
Some of the family members were telling me when I was out there that night that the cruiser actually crashed into the ATV at one point. Have you determined, did that happen at all?
I'm not going to go into the details of what we know today as it relates to this investigation.
Chief, talk about the fine line that your officers have to walk, it would seem so, between policing and maintaining a good relationship with the community. Some who may harbor some hostile feelings over the incident.
You know, let's face it, I've said this, if it happens in California, St. Louis, Chicago, in some way, if there's an incident that people are upset about in one of those places or anywhere, it's going to touch us to some degree. The key is to continue to build those good relationships, and the more you have a relationship, there's no secret. I've said this to all of you during my tenure. It's important that I communicate with you so that I can communicate to our community. Transparency is important, and while many times I can't always share intimate details of an investigation, the key is I'm going to tell you what I know and what I can tell you. That's very important for a chief executive to do that. And those are the kind of things that really reduce tensions. And that doesn't mean that everybody we're going to have in contact with is going to be in love with the police. That's just not the case. I've also talked about, you know, those who involve themselves in violent criminal behavior. Those are the ones who tend to be aggressive towards police.
Being that we're talking about a police-involved death, can you give an update on the 19-year-old from February, who I think that has not been resolved yet? I think it was Reynard Burton, was shot in the backyard.
You're asking about a case that, at this point, I'm unfamiliar. I wish I could look that up for you, but you happened in February?
Yeah, it was a 19-year-old, there was a struggle in the backyard.
Oh, you're talking about the Detroit police, that matter is, I believe that matter is still at the prosecutor's office. There's been no decision. So another one, that was in the 10th precinct. Okay.
Chief, do you think the
mentioned
community would be
about-
relieved by your findings, your findings in the investigation?
As I've said before, and I'll say it again today, our goal, our objectives is to get to the truth of the matter. But wherever the evidence takes us, we follow, and it's the truth. And so if it supports the officer, that's where the evidence took it. If it exonerates, if it certainly sustains any misconduct, criminal or otherwise, that's where the evidence takes us. Our goal is to find the truth.
Chief, do you think MSP needs to look at its chase policy and possibly make changes to it?
Well, let me just say this. I'm not going to discuss anything concerning MSP's policy. As you know, there was a moratorium on their pursuit policy enacted several weeks back affecting MSP's pursuits inside the city of Detroit. And so that's a decision made solely by the MSP, not by the Detroit Police Department.
Do you have any input on that, though?
Input in what way?
I didn't know if maybe you called the colonel and suggested that.
Conversations between the colonel and I are private. However, maybe Lieutenant Shaw might have that information for you. Just saying.
Chief, we got a lot of viewers on Facebook. They're from all over the city.
Right.
You mentioned earlier MSP presence could potentially incite some criminal activity. Do you anticipate a call for removal from other communities?
That's a question that, as I said, one incident, and let me just digress for a moment because I think it's important to say this. One incident, if it's later determined that the officer's actions were improper, that his actions represented criminal misconduct, that should not reflect an entire MSP. Just like when Detroit police officers engage in illegal activity, I'll continue to say that incidents or incidents did not reflect the majority of the men and women who wear the uniform and badge and serve this community. So I would hope that the takeaway is that this should not be an incident that defines how the state police do their job. They're a professional police agency. We continue and will continue to have a great working relationship, and certainly they've been a great support here in the city of Detroit, and I would say that they've been a great support to other cities like Flint. I know they have done a lot of work in Flint, and I believe they've done some work in Inkster as well under the Secure Cities program.
Do you look forward to them resuming their patrols?
Absolutely. They've been a support here in the city of Detroit, and again, I understand why the decision was made. If I were in the colonel's shoes, I probably would have made the same decision. Again, it's different. Detroit police, this is the community that we work in, and certainly the incidents, when a bad incident happens in the city of Detroit, I am not going to remove, say, officers assigned to a precinct out of that precinct. I mean, the people that live, work, and play in an area deserve to still be protected and be served. And so that's what's important.
But you would not say they're less protected by having 10 less
I
troopers?
would say they are not less protected. I have every confidence in the work that's going on in the 9th precinct, the men and women who are assigned, and yes, it's one of the busier precincts in the city, but they have just done a phenomenal job over the last several years, and they continue to do so. Any other questions?
Chief, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.